In this video, I will explain every important part of a sewing machine so that you'll have a basic understanding of how this mysterious machine works. I will then show you how to thread your bobbin, thread your machine, and sew your first straight stitch. This is my sewing machine. I don't think you'll need to buy a brand new one, especially when you're just beginning to sew. This machine is over 20 years old. I got it from my mom and it works quite well. So let me show you all the essential parts of a sewing machine. These are the spool pins. For my machine they are vertical, but for other machines they may be horizontal. This is where you place the thread. They hold the thread in position, allowing it to unwind smoothly as you're sewing. This is the bobbin winder. The bobbin winder is a mechanism on a sewing machine used to wind thread onto the bobbin. It ensures that the bobbin is evenly and tightly wound, and the bobbin winder stopper automatically halts the winding process once the bobbin is full, preparing it for use in the machine's lower thread system. With the hand wheel, you can manually raise and lower the needle. You can also pull the hand wheel out, which disengages the needle mechanism, allowing you to wind the bobbin without the needle moving. Always turn this hand wheel towards you. The power switch turns the machine on and off. When threading or cleaning your machine or doing anything that includes your fingers below the needle, always turn your sewing machine off because of safety. This is the reverse stitch lever. It may be a button on your machine. If you push this lever or button, the stitch goes backwards. If you remove this part, you will end up with a free arm. That's good for sewing tubular garments such as sleeves. That's also the area where the bobbin is inserted, and it's called the bobbin case or bobbin holder. This part securely holds the bobbin and ensures that the lower thread is fed evenly, allowing it to interlock with the upper thread to create smooth stitches. Here is the presser foot. Every time before you sew, you will place your fabric under the presser foot and then lower it to the fabric. When you're done with the seam, you will raise it again. To change your presser foot, for example, to use a buttonhole presser foot, you need to lift the lever at the back and then simply snap the new one in place until it clicks. The needle plate is a flat, often metal piece located under the machine's needle and presser foot. There are often some engraved distance lines that you can use while sewing for keeping the right distance. These small yet very important metal teeth pull the fabric through the machine. This is the needle. It moves when you turn the hand wheel. You can distinguish between the needle type and the needle size. The needle type in this set is universal. This is a 70-10 needle, an 80-12 needle, 90-40 needle, and a 160 needle. With the presser foot lifter, you can move the presser foot down to the neutral position or even further up. If you have a very thick fabric or multiple layers stacked together, you can raise the presser foot to its highest position so that the fabric underneath fits, so it can go up or down. If you need to change your needle because it is no longer sharp enough or you need a different type of needle for the fabric, use the needle clamp. To change the needle, raise the needle and lower the presser foot. Then loosen the screw and take out the needle at the bottom. Insert the new needle from below as far as it will go and tighten it back up. With this tension control, you can adjust the thread tension. A good basic tension should be between 3 and 4. The thread guide allows the upper thread to feed smoothly from the spool. To the left of it is the take-up lever. It's the part that goes up and down while you sew. This part pulls the thread from the spool and feeds it to the machine. You will need the bobbin winder tension disc when threading the bobbin. Gently tug on the thread to ensure it's between the tension discs. With the stitch selector or pattern selector dial, you can select a stitch pattern like a straight stitch or a zigzag stitch. When turning the stitch length dial, you can increase or decrease the stitch length. The higher the number, the longer the stitch. The foot pedal is usually on the floor next to your foot. You press the pedal with your foot, and that regulates the number of stitches. The further you press the foot pedal down, the higher the number of stitches will be. Now we know all the parts of the sewing machine. But how is a seam created? The needle lowers and pierces the fabric, creating a loop with the upper thread. As the needle rises, a hook or a mechanism catches the lower thread, pulling it through the loop and forming a stitch. This process repeats with each needle movement, interlocking the upper and lower threads to create a continuous seam. Maybe you ask yourself why the fabric is moving while sewing. The reason the fabric moves while sewing is because of the feed dogs. They move as you sew and gently grip the bottom fabric to help it pass through the sewing machine. If I block them by using this stuffing plate, the fabric isn't moving anymore because the feed dogs can't touch the fabric anymore. The feed dogs are covered when working with an embroidery hoop, sewing on buttons or darning. Now that we understand how a stitch is formed and why the fabric moves while sewing, let's prepare our machine and sew our first stitch together. Let's wind the bobbin thread. Pull out a spool pin and place the spool of thread on it. Guide the thread through the thread guide, giving it some tension. Then, thread the end through the small hole in the bobbin from the bottom up. Wrap several loops of thread around the bobbin and place the bobbin on the winder so that the spring on the winder fits into the slot of the bobbin. Push the bobbin winder to the right. Pull out the hand wheel to set the machine for winding. Plug the power supply into the designated socket and turn on your machine using the on-off switch. Then press the foot pedal. Let some thread wind onto the bobbin, then stop the machine. Cut off the excess thread and press the foot pedal again. The bobbin will stop when it's full. Push the bobbin winder to the left. You can also stop earlier if you only need a small amount of thread. A fully winded bobbin should look like this. The thread should move evenly up and down. If it doesn't, place a pencil underneath and move it up and down. Now we will thread and insert the bobbin case. Remove the bobbin case from the compartment. Place the bobbin in the bobbin case, ensuring the thread unwinds in the correct direction. Pull the thread through the slot in the bobbin case and thread it into the opening, leaving about 10 centimeters or 4 inches of thread extending. I will show you again from a different point of view. Insert the bobbin case back into its compartment securely. If you want to check the bobbin thread tension, you can hold your bobbin case like this. The bobbin case should not fall under its own weight. If you have to adjust the bobbin thread tension, do it by using the slot screw in small increasement. Turning the screw to the right increases the tension, while turning it to the left decreases the tension. Now let's thread the machine. I will show you from a distance first, so you can see the entire movement. Then I will demonstrate the individual steps up close. Thread the upper thread along the marked threading path. It should be marked on your sewing machine. Guide the thread into the upper thread guide. hold the thread at the spool and pull it through the tension mechanism and around the lower thread guide. Then come back up to the take-up lever. If you can't see your take-up lever, turn the hand wheel towards you until the take-up lever becomes visible. Thread the thread through the take-up lever and then all the way down again. My sewing machine has a small ring here where the thread passes through again. Now thread it from the front to the back of the needle. I highly recommend you to read your manual and understand the thread guide that is printed on your machine. The last step is to bring up the bobbin thread. Hold the upper thread with your left hand and turn the hand wheel. Retrieve the bobbin thread by gently pulling on the needle thread. Pull both threads out by about 10 cm and place them under the presser foot towards the back. Now the sewing machine is fully prepared and ready to sew. Select the straight stitch on your machine. Turn on your machine and place 2 pieces of fabric under the presser foot. Lower the presser foot. The needle should be approximately 1 or 2 cm from the edge of the fabric. Hold the 2 threads at the back and turn the hand wheel so that the needle lowers into the fabric. Hold the fabric lightly. You don't need to pull it hard as the machine will do that for you. Make sure to keep the 2 threads at the back well secured to avoid any issues. Then gently press on the foot pedal to sew about 3 to 4 stitches. Stop, press the reverse button and sew another 3 to 4 stitches backward. Then don't press the reverse button and press the foot pedal again. Sew a straight stitch for the length of your fabric piece. At the end, sew another 3 to 4 stitches backward. That secures your seam so it doesn't unravel. Cut the thread and your first seam is done. Here you see the thicker ends where you did the back stitching. Always do this at the beginning and end of each seam. If you want to sew a zigzag stitch, set your stitch selector to your zigzag stitch. Sew in the same way as with the straight stitch. A wide zigzag stitch looks like this and a narrower one looks like this. Congratulations, you've understood your sewing machine and sewn your first seam. Your sewing journey began today.